2009 Cadillac XLR, and today I'll show you the exterior and interior of the car and then take it for a drive. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Before we get started with the video for today, first I'd like to thank all of you who have subscribed for subscribing. I really am so excited. This channel is getting new people and growing a little bit, and I want to thank you all for that so much. It really means a lot to me. Anyways, getting to the video, we have today a 2009 Cadillac XLR. This is a very exciting car to me because this is actually one of my dream cars. I absolutely love this car. And hopefully I'll get to show you guys exactly why I love it today and why this year, 2009, is such a special year. So, without further ado, let's get started with the video. First, I'd like to tell you guys a little bit about the history of the XLR. Before the XLR was even built, Cadillac actually previewed the XLR's design with the Cadillac Evoque concept, which debuted in 1999. I actually got to see this concept in person at a Cadillac event at the Gilmore Museum in Michigan, and this car was actually extremely similar to what this XLR looks like. And it had really thin lines, really interesting actually a camera as a mirror on the driver's side of the car, and a really interesting interior design. But the overall shape and look of the car is exactly what Cadillac was trying to mimic with the XLR, and they definitely successfully did that. It looks very similar to the concept version and is really an exciting and beautiful looking car to me. The XLR ran from 2004 to the 2009 model year, and some of them may have actually come out in 2003, but if it was 2003 there were only a few. So this car had a relatively short production run. Cadillac was hoping to sell 5,000 to 7,000 of these every single year in that runtime, but unfortunately the highest they got was in the upper 3,000s, and that was only for the first few years, and then it quickly tapered off and production started to slow down for the XLR, especially towards the end. The Cadillac XLR was essentially supposed to be a two-seat roadster at the top of the Cadillac lineup to make some more excitement for the brand and to bring in new and younger buyers to Cadillac. However, the Cadillac XLR was very expensive for the time. This model was about $75,000 to $80,000, and there was an XLR V, which was even more powerful and more exciting. However, that was over $100,000 for over 10 years ago, which is a lot of money. So that means that Cadillac, first of all, did have a lot of trouble selling the XLRs, and a lot of people grew to dislike the XLR because it simply wasn't as powerful as a Corvette, it didn't have an LS motor, and it was too expensive to really make people want to buy the car. And at the end of the 2000s, with the financial crisis and GM's bankruptcy, these cars were not being bought at all. At the end of 2009 model year, Cadillac only sold 653 with about 230 XLR-Vs. So this is an extremely rare car and very hard to find. But what also makes 2009 special for the XLR is that that was the year that Cadillac refreshed the model. They added some new exterior bits to the car and a little bit of changes to the interior as well, which I'll show you guys. So that makes this car extremely desirable today and also relatively expensive. So that was a quick history of the XLR and this 2009 XLR. Now, let's take a look around the car and see what we can find. So I'd actually like to start this review a little bit differently by looking at the side of the Cadillac XLR. From this angle, I believe the design of the car really shines through. It looks so much like a fighter jet from this angle. No other car looks like it, and I think that's what makes this XLR absolutely gorgeous. Now moving back to our normal position at the front of the Cadillac XLR, this is actually where you can most easily tell that this is a 2009 model year Cadillac. That's because for 2009 up front, they changed the grille design and the bumper design from the regular XLR before that. This actually shows a much more modern interpretation of Cadillac grilles. For example, if you take a look at the 2008 Cadillac CTS that I showed you guys, it had a very similar grille where it had the different plastic lines through here, except on here it's actually chrome. And I believe that makes this car look absolutely gorgeous just compared to some of the older models as well. Another change up here is that this XLR actually has the V model hood on it. All 2009 Cadillac XLRs received the bulged hood here that the XLR-Vs received just to make the car look a little bit more special. It is very interesting that Cadillac decided to do that, but I think it was a good design choice just because the hood looks really good on the XLR-Vs, and I think it looks just as good on these 2009 models as well. And another change for the 2009 model year is that these fog lights have a more modern design. I do think they look a little bit nicer. So a part of the vent is functional, which is a good thing to see. And also, another little interesting quirk about these XLRs is the XLR was the first car to have adaptive cruise control for Cadillac. So down here in the lower section of the bumper, you can see that there are two black pieces of plastic down there. That's for the radar system. They are actually behind those pieces of plastic. So just a few more things to mention about the XLRs up front here. First of all, these headlamps do adjust at nighttime. They're adaptive like the CTS is that I showed you guys. So these headlights will turn with you as you go around the corners, which is really nice. And something nice about these headlights is that they both have XLR at the top of them here. That's just kind of a nice attention to detail. I like it when automakers do something special with their headlights, and it looks really cool with this XLR. We also do have some sprayers up here to wash the headlights if they get dirty, which is really nice. And the final thing I'd like to mention about the front end of the Cadillac XLR is that for the 2009 model year, it just looks really, really good to me. It looks so much more modern than any of the older models, and it also has some of the nicest features as well, such as the bulged hood, which I personally really like the look of. So that just makes these 2009 model years so desirable, and that's just one of the reasons why I love it so much. Now moving on again to the side of the car, there are some things I'd like to point out here. First of all, we have another change for the 2009 model year, and another way to tell that this is a 2009 model year is from this chrome vent on the side of the fender of the car. It isn't functional, but it has a really nice look to it. None of the older model year Cadillac XLRs had that, but the XLR-Vs and XLRs from 2009 did have that. Now on the lower end of that vent, we have a General Motors logo down there. A lot of cars from this era did do that. They had GM logos on the front fenders of the cars. Not sure why, but they did that. We also, of course, have our XLR badge on the side of the car. And I'd also like to point out these wheels are also very different from older model year Cadillac XLRs as well. I believe these wheels became optional in about 2008 or 2009. I've only seen them on later end models, so I know they weren't available the first few years. But these wheels are also very distinctive in that they're chrome, but also just a more modern design, which these 2009 XLRs came with. Now moving a little bit further back, we do have large mirrors on the doors here. This is really chunky and quite wide, very easy to see out of, which is nice. Surprisingly, these mirrors are not power folding. I would have expected these to be power just because it's such a luxurious vehicle. However, it does not have power mirrors, which is pretty unfortunate in my book. But what is nice, this mirror has a function where you put the car in reverse, the mirror does tilt down so you can see the curb on this side of the car so you won't scrape it. And then looking at the door itself, we do have an electronic opener for the door. You do have a touch sensitive pad back there, so you put your finger in it and you press the button and the door automatically, electronically opens for you. And something else that happens when you actually open the door to the XLR is that the window does lower slightly in order to release it from the top of the car. And then once you close the door again, it actually raises back up into its normal position, which is really interesting. And we also do have a nice pinstripe along the entire side of the car here. It's very hard to notice because it's almost the same color as this car, but it is there. And something else I do want to mention about the side of the car, another reason why I love it so much, is because you have one body line running literally from the front headlight all the way to the rear. This one single line runs all the way across the car, and it doesn't bend, it's just absolutely straight. And that's what actually adds to the shape of this car and makes it look literally like a wedge going down the road. And that's another one of the reasons why I like it. It just looks so good to me, and no other car out there looks like it. So that's one of the most important parts of the Cadillac XLR there, is that one body line. And now on the driver's side of the XLR, we do have our fuel door here. This is actually a very unique looking door. It has a little cutout here for the wheel well, just to kind of make it look like it matches with the rest of the car. But I've never seen a fuel door of this shape, and I think it actually fits the design of the XLR. You can only open this fuel door from the inside of the XLR, but once it's open, we do have an actual gas cap in there, which is a little bit inconvenient, but that's what most cars were like back then. Now looking at the back of the car, one of the other changes Cadillac made for the 2009 model year was changing the way the exhaust looks on this car. I love the way it looks. It's actually filling in that entire gap. The exhaust kind of looks like a big trapezoid or something. It's very unique, very cool looking, and absolutely sporty. There are some fake vents down there, which are actually not on any of the other Cadillac models besides 2009. It looks pretty nice, but I do wish they were real. We do have LED lights back here. All of these rear tail lights are LED. They're very distinctive. They look like Cadillac lights, which is very cool. We do have, of course, a Cadillac badge up in the rear tail light. kind of an interesting place for it. Not sure if I like the looks of it, but I don't know where else they would have put the Cadillac badge, because that's really the only place they could have done it. And a few more noteworthy things back here. We do have backup sensors for the XLR. There is no backup camera, unfortunately, which would have been nice to have, especially with a small sports car like this, so you don't scratch it up or something. We do have a little square down here in the panel of the car. That is actually something that can be opened up, and it's a keyhole in there. Say your battery dies and you need to get into your car, you take the key from your key fob, you stick it in that keyhole and twist it, the trunk will pop open for you and you somehow lift it up, and then inside the trunk you have a emergency door release where you can pull on that and then the door will open to the inside of the XLR, which is nice to have in case if the battery dies. And on the lower right section of the trunk we do have an XLR badge as well. And speaking of the trunk, let's open it and see what's inside. We do have a button here, and the trunk is completely automatic. Now, it of course raises up really, really high. So one of my worries about this trunk is, what if it's like super windy, like it's like 40-mile-per-hour wind and you raise this thing? I mean, I don't think that that's going to be able to hold the trunk in place if you have wind blowing on it. So looking into the trunk of the XLR, it is relatively decently spaced. We have about 11.6 cubic feet of space in here, which isn't bad. But something I hadn't mentioned yet about the XLR is that it is a hardtop convertible, which is another one of the reasons why I absolutely love this car. But of course the top stores into the trunk of the car. But what if you have stuff back here and you get your stuff crushed by the top? There is an answer for that. We do have back here a cargo divider, and what you have to do is you put this cargo divider into place, and once it's in place, the car knows that there isn't going to be anything behind that cargo divider, so the roof will automatically lower into the trunk there and take up most of the room. However, with this cargo divider in place, you do have only about 4.4 cubic feet of space, but it's still not bad. You can still fit some bags in here, so it's not absolutely awful, but it definitely is much more convenient with the roof up and with the divider down. Now on the right side of the trunk, we do have an area there that can open up, and it's kind of more storage. I'm not totally sure if something's supposed to be in there or not, but we do have extra cargo capacity there, which is nice. We also have a piece of plastic here with the Cadillac script on it. It's not on the left side, interestingly enough, but just on the right side. And in the trunk, we also do have an emergency fuel door release, as well as an emergency release for the trunk if someone gets trapped back here. We can actually close the trunk from back here as well. You do have a button to automatically lower it, like so. And I gotta say, that actually does beat electric trunk pull down. So you don't actually have to touch the trunk at all for this one. So I gotta say, I'm happy that this car does not have the pull down, which is definitely a first. Alright, let's now take a look underneath the hood of the Cadillac XLR. So we have a hood release on the left side here, so pull that off to the side. The hood lifts easily and it reveals the Cadillac Northstar V8 engine. Now a lot of people complained that the XLR did not have an LS motor. The LS motor makes more power, it's probably easier to work on, cheaper to get parts. But I think it would have been a mistake putting the LS motor into the XLR. I think it would have made this car too much like a Corvette. It wouldn't have differentiated it enough. The Northstar engine is that differentiator, and it makes the Cadillac XLR a Cadillac instead of a Corvette. Although this car doesn't make nearly as much power as the LS motor would, I don't think this car needs to have that much power because it's more of a luxury, nice cruiser. It's not supposed to be strictly a performance vehicle. However, this Northstar engine does make a decent amount of power, makes about 320 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque, which definitely isn't bad. But if you did want more power out of an XLR, you could get the XLR V, which also came with a Northstar motor, but that made about 443 horsepower and 410 pound-feet of torque, so definitely a big jump in power, which is very exciting. And with the looks of the Northstar engine under here, it actually looks very unique to me. It does have a huge plastic cover to it, which makes the engine seem gigantic. Fits nicely, it is pushed well back into the car. This XLR does have about 50-50 weight distribution with the transmission in the back, so it is a good performing car with the weight distributed like it is. So Cadillac definitely took the lengths to make it a fun car as well as a very comfortable car. And as far as fuel economy goes, this Northstar engine isn't too bad. It gets about 14 miles per gallon in the city and 24 miles per gallon on the highway. So overall, I'd say this engine is a very good fit for the XLR. Definitely not a huge performance car, but definitely enough to make this car a lot of fun. Alright, let's start up the XLR and see how the Northstar sounds. Now before we step inside the XLR, I do want to show you guys the key fob to the XLR. So this is very similar to many other Cadillac fobs of the day. However, many of the older XLRs did not have a key fob like this. It was actually a Bulgari designed key fob, which actually had Bulgari written on it. It had metal buttons in the middle. So very different design, but I do kind of prefer this fob because it's supposed to be more durable. It's also a little bit more modern. We do have the Cadillac logo on the back, which is nice to have. On the front, we do have our buttons here. We have lock, unlock, we can open up the trunk, and we have our panic button there. What is unfortunate is this XLR did not come with auto start. I don't believe any XLRs did come with that, which is a shame because many other GM vehicles at the time, such as our 2008 Suburban, did have auto start, so it's a shame that the XLRs did not have that. Anyways, you do have another button here which does release this key in the fob, if I can do it. There we go. And that's of course what you use to get into the trunk of the XLR if your battery dies. So it's nice that you do have that there. So overall, this key fob does have a nice weight to it. It is really nice that you have keyless entry, keyless start. So very convenient and very ahead of its time. I do wish, however, that we did have auto start, but that's okay. Now before we take a look at the inside of the XLR, I do want to show you guys how the convertible top works. So in order to lower the top, you have to go inside of the XLR where you'll find a button on the center console which looks like an XLR. You have to press and hold the down arrow on that button, and then the windows will automatically lower. The trunk will actually open up at the back, and then the roof will slowly lower into the trunk. It's very kind of confusing looking and very complicated. Definitely an interesting design how Cadillac made it. Now as you can see, once the top is in the back of the trunk actually has a little piece of metal that folds forward, and then it slowly lowers back down, and then finally you have a flush rear end and you have an open top convertible. Definitely a nice look with the top down. I do think I still like the look of the XLR a little bit more with the top up, but it's still very clean looking. And then in order to put the top back up, you have to actually press the up arrow on that switch, and then the trunk will of course open again, and just do all the same steps but in the opposite order. And then finally the trunk will close and you'll be back with a hard top convertible. And of course, once you put the top up or down and the whole process finishes, the car will ding to notify you that it is all ready to go. So I believe that Cadillac actually licensed Mercedes-Benz to use their same technology in their SL hardtop convertible. So I don't think that Cadillac wanted to design a whole hardtop configuration for the XLR themselves. Probably would have taken too much money to develop it, so they just licensed that same technology from Mercedes-Benz. And also another really cool quirk about when you put the top back up on the car, if you want both the windows to be closed when the process is finished, you just tap that button once more, and then the windows will automatically both raise into the upward position. So most people don't know that about these XLRs, is that if you want the windows closed after the top goes up, you just press that button and they both go up. Okay, now that we've taken a good look at the exterior of the XLR, let's go ahead and look at the inside and see what it's like. So, looking at the interior of the Cadillac XLR, it is very nice in here. First of all, there are several different color combinations that you could get for the XLR and in 2009 as well that were special. But this one has a nicer one. It's very light. I do like the contrast between the darks and the brights in here, and it's definitely nice to have a lighter interior since this is a convertible. The leather won't get quite as hot when the sun is beating down on it. And looking at the general layout of the interior, definitely is a little bit aged, but it is still definitely very nice. Maybe not quite as nice as new cars and new Cadillacs today, but I can definitely see this as being a top-end Cadillac for back in the day. Now I'm going to move on to the door panel here. I do like the different colors used on this panel. We do have a nice darker faux looking leather which is stitched nicely at the top of the door, and then moving down from that we do have a lot of leather on the side of the door as well as the armrest, which is nice. We do also have some real wood for the handle here as well, which is also electronic. We have a button there for that. It definitely feels nice, and it's in a good spot in the door which you can easily press and open it. We do also have another change which was made for the 2009 model year, which are the interior buttons on the door here. The window switches and the mirror switch is different for 2009, which I wouldn't say they made the switches necessarily nicer than any of the older XLRs. It just looks different. I don't really mind the older switches, so it's kind of a personal preference if you prefer the 2009 switches, but they are all there. The windows are, of course, automatic up and down on both sides, which is very nice. And then above that we have our door lock and unlock button, as well as a vent in the door, which is pretty nice to see. We do have a nice Bose sound system in this car. There are a lot of speakers in this vehicle. There are some in the seats as well, which is very nice to see. Very cool looking, and it's also very practical for when you have the top down. It makes it easier to hear the sound system when the speakers are in the seats and all around you. And then, of course, we have a panel here which actually opens up, and that gives you a storage area in the door, which is nice to see. And also on the end of the door, there is a sticker here that has the Cadillac emblem, and it says XLR as well as Bowling Green Assembly. And that's important because this XLR was actually built at the Bowling Green Assembly plant in Kentucky, where the Corvette is made. And that is so significant because the XLR is the only non-Corvette vehicle to be built at that assembly plant. And we also do have a nice looking door sill here which says XLR on it, as well as Platinum. This Platinum trim was actually the only one offered for 2009, but the Platinum trim was introduced in I think 2007 or 2008. It kind of added some more interior colors and some nicer materials on the inside. Not a huge change, but it is nice to see the Platinum trim used on this XLR. Alright, now let's get inside of the XLR and see what it's like. Okay. Alright, here we are inside. So just to talk about the seat a little bit, it is actually very comfortable. It's much more plush than many modern Cadillac seats and other car seats are today. Definitely very soft. The leather feels really nice, nicely padded. The bolstering isn't too harsh on this car. Definitely still holds you in place, but it's not quite as bolstered as maybe a Corvette seat would be. The headrest does not adjust on this seat, which is a little bit of a disappointment. I do wish I could move the headrest forwards or maybe up and down. The seat controls for the seat are down here to the left by my thigh. I can move the seat forwards and backwards, up and down, everything you'd kind of expect. I also have nice lumbar controls as well. And this seat does have memory functions for two people and an exit function as well. But what is funny is that the buttons to control those things are actually upside down on this seat. And the reason they're upside down is so that the driver, when they lean forward to look at the buttons are facing him, and then he can read it and then adjust his seat as needed for the memory's functions. Now, a feature that this XLR has that was really ahead of its time is a heads-up display. It's relatively simple. It looks very similar to maybe some of the heads-up displays as some of the Corvettes had back in the day, but I think that this XLR one is a little bit more simplified. It doesn't quite have as much as the Corvette would have had, such as a rev meter. It is still relatively intuitive. It shows you things such as your miles per hour, what gear you're in if you're manually shifting your gears, and it can show things such as your gap distance between cars ahead of you, stuff like that. Pretty neat to see. So it's really cool to see this heads-up display on the XLR. To adjust the heads-up display, I do have buttons on my left here to adjust the brightness or the angle that I can see the heads-up display. Then below those controls, I have my fuel door release as well as my trunk release. Now ahead of me, I do have a nice steering wheel here. This steering wheel is actually added for the 2008 model year XLRs, and it's actually heated, and that's the purpose for why they added this steering wheel. So we do have some nice buttons on the left to adjust the gap distance for the adaptive cruise control. We do have a button for the heated steering wheel, of course. Then on the right, we have our radio controls as well as our Bluetooth controls. What is really nice is that the 2009 XLRs and maybe some of the 2008s actually came with Bluetooth, which is a wonderful feature. But I do like the design of this steering wheel compared to the older ones. This is much more modern looking, very nice to hold. It also has some nice wood at the top, similar to what the older XLRs had as well, but it is nice to have a heated steering wheel in a convertible. And then behind the steering wheel on the right, we have our wiper controls, and on the left, we have our cruise control and our headlight controls there as well. And on the left, we can use this button to adjust the tilt or telescoping of the steering wheel, which is all automatic. And as far as the gauges go for the XLR, they're pretty much all analog. And I do have some buttons on the right as well. I have a button to go through the driver information center. You can see your gas mileage, your tripometers, odometer, things like that, which you'd expect. But to talk about the gauges in general, what is interesting is that these gauges are different for these later model year XLRs than some of the older ones. Cadillac actually had Bulgari design the instrument cluster for their XLRs, and most of them had the Bulgari script written around in plastic around the gauges. And this one is obviously missing that, so I'm not sure if the Bulgari relationship between Cadillac and Bulgari ended, and that's another reason why the key fob doesn't have Bulgari on these later model ones as well. It's just a little bit more plain without that chrome Bulgaria script on the gauges, but they still look very nice. I believe that some of the lettering also changed for the 2009 XLRs. The numbers look a little bit different than some of the older ones, but overall I'd say it's still a pretty nice look for the gauges. And then by my right knee here, I do have a stop and start button for the XLR. This car did come with push button start. What's interesting is that this plastic button did actually come in the C6 Corvettes as well, so it's kind of interesting that Cadillac didn't try to differentiate that button from the Corvette models. And what's nice is when you do start it up, it actually shows on the heads-up display XLR in really cool big lettering, and the Cadillac logo as well. Pretty neat to see. And also in the driver information center, it also says XLR by Cadillac. So pretty fancy startup, and it makes the car feel very, very special when you bring the engine to life. And to talk a little bit more about the materials in the inside of the car, we do have some nice, what feels like stitched leather on the dashboard. I'm not totally sure if it's real or not. And this is also apparently real aluminum on the middle of the dashboard as well as on the doors there. It doesn't really feel that nice though. It doesn't feel like metal to me, but Cadillac marketed it as being real metal, but definitely could be nicer quality. It definitely doesn't feel like metal. We do have a nice screen here for our navigation as well as our radio controls. Definitely a little bit dated, but it's actually fairly easy to use to actually set the presets, to change presets, and to use the map. You just tap and kind of hold where you want the map to go. Not too difficult to use, and it's actually fairly quick and responsive, which is nice to see. We do actually have XM radio on this vehicle. I think the Cadillac XLR is one of the first Cadillacs to actually come with that. And we do have an interesting button on the radio screen here which says tilt. And when you press that button, the screen actually folds back and it reveals what is the map disc for the worldwide map. So yeah, that's how you actually get to the disc, which is what the navigation works off of to give you directions on different roads. Below the screen, we do have a DVD/CD player, so you could actually watch a movie in the XLR if you wanted to, which is kind of funny. The XLR also has a 6-disc CD changer, which I forgot to mention earlier. And we do also have some climate controls below that as well. And we do have dual climate controls in this car, so the passenger and driver can set their own temperature as they'd like. And what's really nice is that we do have heated seat buttons here. You can of course press the button, turn on high or low heated seats. But what most people don't know is these heated seat buttons are also cooled seat buttons. If you continue to press the buttons, you'll eventually get to the cooled seats, which are high and low cooled seats, which is really nice to have. And I believe this is the first Cadillac and possibly even GM product to have cooled seats, which was definitely ahead of its time. It's really especially nice to have in a convertible because you can have a hot summer day when you have the top down and you want to have cooled seats. So you turn on those cooled seats and it helps to cool you down. Then on the center console we have a nice shifter here. It does have some real wood on it and feels pretty nice. You of course can go into park, reverse, neutral drive as you'd expect, but if you push the shifter off to the left, you can go into overdrive and you can adjust your own gears if you wanted to. This XLR did come with a 6-speed transmission, which is new for the XLR in 2007, I believe. To the right of the shifter, we do have 2 cup holders, which are of decent size. They could be bigger, but that's okay. And then behind the cup holders, we have our button for our hardtop, and we also have our traction control button here, which we can use to turn on or off traction control. And speaking of storage in this car, like I mentioned, each of the doors have their own pockets in them, relatively small, but you do have a nice big glove compartment on the right side of the XLR. And then we also have our center console here, which opens up, and it's a fair amount of space. It's not that deep, but definitely big enough to at least fit an owner's manual or something else in there if you wanted to. And you do have a 12-volt outlet inside of the center console, so you can charge up something while you're driving in your XLR. And we also do have a hidden storage area in between the 2 seats. You kind of press this button and twist it, and it reveals 2 pockets. It's kind of shelved, so you can fit several different things in there. Pretty nice amount of storage there. So the Cadillac definitely did go through a lot of effort to try and make sure that there was enough storage for all the people inside of the XLR. And then on the right side of the dashboard inside of the car, we do have an XLR badge, so you can look at it and see what kind of car this is from the inside. And then above me, we do have 2 visors here, which are actually fitted in nice Alcantara suede material, as well as the headliner here. I believe that was a special edition for the 2009 models, as well as the Platinum Edition XLRs. Definitely a nice material, and I'm glad they added it. On the visor here, we do have garage home link buttons, which are very nice to have. Of course, you can open up 3 garage doors with that. And we do have lighted vanity mirrors behind both of the visors on this car. And then behind the seat, we also do have our roll bars back there. They're actually fairly nice. It looks like it's nicely leather wrapped. Nice to have those there on this convertible. And something else to point out, as I mentioned before, this car does have backup sensors, but it doesn't just beep at you when you back up to something. There are lights in between the two seats here, which you can see in your rearview mirror, and it lights up to indicate how close you are to backing into something. So it's nice that they added those lights there, and makes it easy to back up to things without actually hitting them. To the left of my foot here, we do have what looks like a lever with a red car on it and a door opening. What that is an emergency release for the driver's door in case if your battery dies, because these doors are electronic, so if the battery dies and you press the button, it's not going to open. However, you can pull that lever and the doors will open for you, and then it'll let you to get out. I read an article recently about a man who got stuck in his XLR because the battery died on him, and he had no idea that lever was there, and he was stuck in his car for over a day. Fortunately, he didn't die. His neighbors saved him, but that lever there would have saved him, so be sure to take note of that if you do have an XLR. Okay, now that we've taken a good look at the interior and exterior of the XLR, let's go ahead and take it for a drive. Oh, I can't wait. I'm so excited. Okay guys, we're driving the XLR. I gotta tell you, I'm just so excited about this car. This, like I said before in the beginning of the video, this is one of my dream cars, so I'm really just beyond excited to do this review and to show it to you guys and just to drive it. This is just such a great experience. So driving around this XLR, I've got to say it's actually riding extremely well, especially for a two-door coupe like it is, based off of a Corvette. This is so much more smooth than even like a C7 Corvette is. The Corvette to me is just more rambunctious and more sport-oriented, but this Cadillac did a great job in making this a comfortable car. And the Corvette is always hailed as being a comfortable daily driver. You can go and take it on road trips, you can do everything with it. But I think the XLR does that even better. You want to be comfortable most of the time in a car like this. Even in a Corvette, you want to be comfortable most of the time. You're not always punching it and going around hard turns. Sometimes you're just normally driving it. And the XLR is so smooth and comfortable. It really actually feels like most of the other Cadillacs I've driven, which is surprising to say, but it's true. The magnetic ride control doesn't let the car waft around. It doesn't feel so boaty like most of the other Cadillacs did, but it's still a very soft and comfortable ride, and most bumps I don't even feel. But if you do want to feel the bumps, and if you do want to be sporty, you can still put the shifter over into the overdrive mode. Stiffens up the suspension, it'll shift for you if you want it to, or you can do your own shifting. It does a really good job of being sporty when you want it to, but it can also be extremely comfortable, which on a level that Corvettes cannot do and have not done before. And comparing this to, I'd say like the C5 and the C6 Corvette, which were being built at the same time as this XLR, those Corvettes definitely did have, in my opinion, a worse interior. This interior is still pretty nice, not the best in the world, but definitely nicer than those Corvettes were. It came with many more features that those Corvettes did. This is really, in my view, ahead of its time. I mean, cooled seats, adaptive cruise control. I mean, it has a lot of stuff that many cars today are just now kind of getting as standard. And it can give you the hardtop or a convertible experience, which I think is just fantastic. I personally don't like a lot of the modern convertibles with soft tops. It just doesn't really fit many cars. I didn't like the C7 Corvette with the soft top. It just didn't look good to me. But something like this I could definitely live with, because it gives you an enclosed hardtop experience, but it also has the convertible as well. And I gotta say, the hood on this car looks awesome. This has the XLR V hood, as I mentioned earlier, and it's a good bit bulged in the middle, which a normal XLR wouldn't have, and it really makes a difference in how the car looks. I have actually driven one XLR V before, but it was actually tuned. Some previous owner of it actually tuned it up and made it way too sporty. I didn't like what he did. So I haven't had an actual stock XLR V experience before, so I'd really be curious if that car is just as comfortable as this is. And I do kind of miss the Bulgari gauges in the middle. It looks a little bit too plain without the Bulgari script written in the plastic there. And some of the older XLR fobs almost seemed in some ways nicer than this 2009 XLR's fob, because it was the softer material, softer rubber on the Bulgari ones, and it just seemed a little bit more unique. So it is a shame that in some ways, in my opinion, it seems like the XLRs got a little bit worse over time. But overall, still a better car than the earlier ones. And the visibility is actually pretty good. You do have a good bit of room where you can't really see anything, but it's actually not as bad as you might think it would be. At least the window is absolutely massive on this XLR, so you can see out of your blind spot pretty easily. No blind spot warning on this car, but honestly the mirrors are pretty much wide enough that you should be able to see around yourself pretty easily, which is nice. And at some point, I actually will lower the top to give you guys the convertible experience of the XLR too. I kind of want to give you guys as best of an experience in the XLR as possible, especially since this is such a rare car, and I want you guys to experience the whole shebang with this vehicle. And the heads-up display is actually really nice to have on this car too. And that's another feature that I didn't even think that these cars had back then. I think some Oldsmobile models in the 80s might have had heads-up displays, or maybe the late 90s, I forget when it was, but definitely a really cool feature. Alright guys, I'm going to put it into the manual mode real quick, and we'll see what it's like. 6. Definitely not a quick gear change, but certainly not bad. I mean, it's actually better than I was expecting, but honestly I just can't get over the nice ride that this car offers. I mean, the seats are so comfortable. They're not like Corvette seats. You're not going to get uncomfortable riding in this car for hours on end. Overall, the design changes they made with the 2009 model year I think were pretty great. They really did a good job of modernizing the XLR, because the older ones, they didn't look bad to me, but I especially didn't really like the wheels on the older XLRs. There are definitely nice changes they made with the 2009 model year. Okay guys, let's do a 0 to 60. See what the North Star can do. I'm not expecting it to be nearly as good as the Stingray, which it shouldn't be, but let's see what it can do. It's 40. 60. That was pretty good. Yeah, I'm impressed. That's definitely not quite as sporty as some of the Corvettes would be, or comparable Corvettes, but the XLR did a really good job. What's nice is that it's actually fairly quick, and even though this car is pretty heavy, it's about 3,800 pounds. I think Corvettes at the time, like the C6, is like 3,100, so this is like 700 pounds more, which you'd expect because this is, you know, a little bit more luxurious, has nicer interior appointments. The body panels, I believe, are a little bit thicker just to give a nicer experience and a quieter ride. And of course, you have the hardtop convertible, so it all adds up. But really, that was actually pretty good. Definitely don't need any more power than that, and it's not bad. And comparing this XLR to what I think was kind of the main competitor for it, the Mercedes-Benz SL at the time, I think this car has aged so much better than the SL. The SL is more rounded off, the interior is more rounded, and it just looks aged to me. It just doesn't look nearly as good. I don't like the headlights as much, but this car, with the edgy styling that Cadillac had and what they brought over from the Evoque concept, it just looks so good. Alright, time to lower the top, finally. Oh, I'm just so excited. Absolutely amazing. That really just blows my mind. I gotta tell you guys, I'm just so impressed by this car. I could really live in this car and be happy. Boom, we suddenly have a convertible. I am curious just how quiet it'll be with the top down, because it could be kind of loud at times with wind just banging against you, so it will be kind of an interesting experience. So let's see what happens when we get up to speed. And something that is a little bit uncomfortable is that the wind visor is pretty close to my forehead, so I worry that if I get into a crash, my head's gonna hit that or something, and not that it would kill me, but I mean, that's kind of weird. Yeah, right now the wind buffeting isn't so bad. I do have to raise my voice to talk to you guys, but really this is actually quite comfortable. I'm sure with the windows up, let me actually do that. Yeah, with both the windows up, it's like there's hardly any wind. Man, this does feel good around corners too, I gotta say. I just can't tell you guys enough how much I love this car, and how much I love that it's a convertible and just a hard top. It satisfies like everything in me. I think I'm gonna give it one quick hard acceleration so you guys can hear what it sounds like with the top down. Wow, That sounded fantastic. And I gotta say, the XLR-V is supercharged, and it probably sounds a little bit better than that, but I can't imagine it sounding much better than that. It was just so good. It's something I heard in a podcast or in an article about Bob Lutz. He was the vice chairman, I believe, of General Motors. He said that when they were developing the C7 Corvette, it was like in the late 2000s, he said that they had two clay models of a mid-engined C7 Corvette as well as a mid-engined Cadillac XLR. And he said that the XLR was going to be there to help kind of supplement the high price of making a mid-engine Corvette. Those projects were discontinued with GM's bankruptcy and the financial crisis, and so we never got to see a C7 mid-engine Corvette or the mid-engine XLR they were going to make. He said that the XLR, the clay model, was the most beautiful car he'd ever seen. He said that it was going to be if they made it, he said it was going to be the car that he'd keep forever. And I wish so badly that we would have seen that XLR, because I'm sure it would have been absolutely beautiful. And what does make me wonder for the future is if General Motors will make another XLR or a car like it. Right now, Cadillac is going electric, so they probably won't end up making an XLR based off of the C8 Corvette platform. But until they make an electric C8 Corvette, maybe there'll be an XLR or a car like it. I know Cadillac would do a great job designing it, and they would do a brilliant job making it. It would be a really beautiful car, I'm sure. Well, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video of the XLR. I certainly had a ton of fun with it, so I hope that you guys did too. I know there aren't too many 2009 XLR videos on YouTube, so it's kind of a neat car to bring to you guys, and I'm glad that you got to experience it with me. It's just such a unique car and so interesting, and I hope that you guys got to learn something about this car and kind of understand why I like it so much. I think many of you would too. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching the video. I really do appreciate it. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching my video. I really hope that you enjoyed it and learned something new. Please remember to comment, like, and subscribe, and to come back again soon for more videos. Thank you. And speaking of the trunk, let's open it. This is completely automatic, except I locked the car. We got a branch on the road up ahead. Uh-oh, ooh, that guy just ran over that branch. We missed the branch, yes. I gotta say, the seatbelt's actually kind of hard to reach. It's really far back there, so it kind of have to wedge your hand in between the seat and the side of the car to get to it. Darn, I dropped it.